Good morning and welcome to the Women Beat Youngstown School of Public Affairs. My name is Ken Flamm. I teach here. This sounds like a very exciting conference we're going to be having over the next 2 days. I'd like to welcome you. I'd like to thank the various organizations that have been working with us and sponsored the project that our graduate students are going to be telling you about today. And they're going to be up here in a moment, and that includes Will Reed from Technology for All and Texas Connects Coalition, Don Shirley from Connected Texas, Sharon Strover at TIPI, the Telecommunications and Information Policy Institute at the University of Texas, one of the co-sponsors. And of course, I'm at the LBJ School, and our Technology and Public Policy program is also one of the co-sponsors of the event throughout today. So without further ado, I'm going to let Sharon Strover continue with our brief introductions.
Yeah, thank you, Ken. We're very happy to see you here. I hope it'll be an exciting day and a half. Today we're hearing from a lot of Texas-based groups, and we're going to hear about some Texas-based research as well later on in the morning, and we'll have some interesting discussions, I think, about what's going on with digital inclusion and access to the internet in Texas, but also more broadly around the country. We're also extremely happy, and a lot of us are pretty excited that Google Fiber is actually coming to Austin. And you may have noticed we did add a session at the very end of the day tomorrow to talk for whoever is interested to meet to chat a little bit about Google Fiber, and we'll probably hear a little bit more about that at some point today as well. But right now, I'm very pleased to introduce Austin Councilmember Laura Morrison, who is here to welcome you. Laura Morrison was elected to serve as an Austin City Council member, and she's been a champion for open government, sustaining affordable housing and supporting local businesses and improving education. She has been a real advocate for trying to bring more women into mathematics and engineering, and more people in general into mathematics and engineering. She serves on several council committees and is the chair of the Telecommunications Committee in particular, and also serves on the Audit and Finance and Human Services committees. With a master's degree in mathematics and a graduate certificate as well, her professional career has included working as an engineer. And she's also worked in the field of pandemic flu preparedness, and she's overseen software development. So she is a multi-talented individual. We're extremely happy and well served with her on the council. She's been a very strong advocate for digital inclusion as well, and has been instrumental in securing additional funding to help bring Google Fiber here. So with that, I'll turn this over to Laura.
See if I can get this on by myself. Thank you, Sharon, and good morning, everybody. I see people all the way in the back. Wake up very soon. But it's a real honor to get to be here to welcome you and open the Digital Inclusion in Texas Conference. And thank you to UT and the LBJ School for hosting this. At the city, we are certainly committed to promoting technologically healthy community with digital inclusion for everyone here. That includes ensuring that residents have the technology training and access needed to ensure civic participation and collaboration, as well as lifelong learning. We provide a variety of technology programs at the city that I think really help to boost that, and you'll be able to hear a lot more about those specifically in one of today's sessions with the city's very own Rondella Hawkins. The session is called Collaborating to Achieve Digital Literacy in Texas. So ensuring technology equity requires both an understanding of the digital divide as well as a strategy to ensure full deployment and adoption. It's more than just computer ownership or having internet access nearby. It encompasses really 3 areas, the way we see it: access, technology literacy, and relevant content and services. So not only does inclusion seek equity for residents, but also we want to make sure that small businesses and nonprofits are all part of that inclusion. It's certainly an exciting time in the city of Austin to be involved in technology and digital inclusion and broadband policy discussions with the recent announcement that Sharon mentioned, and I'm sure you all know about Google Fiber coming to Austin. It's really critical that every single one of our residents understands the relevance of the internet to their daily lives, whether it's helping their kids with their homework, access to health information, or the need, the specifics for how to get online and apply for jobs. Google Fiber in Austin could not have happened without the dedication of key community members, several of whom are here today. They're the dedicated volunteers that put together and launched, along with UT, something called Big Gig Austin, that partnered with the city to submit a really compelling, well, I should say compelling enough anyways, application to Google to ask Google to bring Google Fiber here. And really, Big Gig Austin became a community gathering point where people traded ideas about what kind of applications we could develop if we had Google Fiber here. One man that was at the epicenter of Big Gig Austin was Gary Chapman. He and his students were there day one. In fact, I didn't know Gary before the whole application process started. And before I knew it, I was on the phone. I wish I was wrong. I still have a long email from him that I got soon after it was announced, with all these ideas of how we could go about it and what it was going to mean to us. Because really, it took a while for people to get the enormity of it. But he was at the epicenter of making that happen. But drawing Google Fiber here is really only step one. Now we have to work together to ensure that we leverage the opportunity that it really presents to the maximum extent possible. For us at City Hall, that means ensuring that the ecosystem is in place that will bring us to a fully technically engaged community where everyone integrates this opportunity into their lives. We have been in touch with folks in Kansas City. We have a lot to learn from Kansas City as we go forward, and it's been a great reminder of the benefits of being number 2. Today, you'll be working on identifying solutions to ensure digital inclusion for all of our residents in Texas. That means collaborating on how you can successfully provide opportunities in a coordinated and strategic way at the local, state, and federal level. So I want to thank everyone for your commitment to this very important topic, and encourage you to keep up the momentum and really help make Texas a greater state than it already is. Thank you, and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you very much. And I'm so pleased that you also acknowledge Gary's role in the efforts to not only make an application for Google Fiber, but really to energize the community around here, not just the community in Austin. Gary worked nationally, he worked internationally, and was always a strong advocate for social justice and the potential of technology to enact social justice. So we're so pleased that his memory is still very strong and alive, and we've dedicated tomorrow's colloquium to Gary. And we'll hear a little bit more about Gary tomorrow as well. So we are ready to have our first session of the day, and I'd like to introduce Will Reed from Technology for All and from the Texas Connects Coalition, and Juanita from Austin Freenet. And they're going to talk a little bit about the BTOP program's objectives and operations, and they're going to tell us a little bit about what's been going on in Texas and with the projects that they've been the most involved in and the most invested in.
Oh, we stand up here.
Okay.
Can you guys hear it okay if I just sit the microphone right here?
Yes.
Okay, super. Let me start by saying, oh, good. So where do I push? This goes. Okay, Technology for All and Austin Freenet are partners on a project, BTOP project called the Texas Connects Coalition Project, and this really began in probably 2009 when our organizations began to talk to each other and realize that by working together we had a lot more capacity than by being separate. And so we submitted an application to the BTOP program and were awarded a grant in September of 2010. So let me talk a little bit about the history of Technology for All and then kind of our collaborative project together, and Juanita can talk about Austin Freenet's piece of this. So push this button right here. Technology for All started in 1998. It began as a project that was started by a businessman in Houston who was looking for a way to create opportunities that in his household his kids took for granted. And that was access to the internet, access to the tools of the internet and the devices, but also the ability to utilize those devices and those tools in a way that would enhance their life. And so they had the world at their fingertips, and so in 1998, in April, Technology for All, in collaboration with the MD Anderson YMCA in Houston, established its first computer lab. And the MD Anderson YMCA is actually one of our public computer centers in the BTOP project. But here, I took a picture. There's our very first volunteer, Andrew Sheehan. He was doing a Boy Scout Eagle project in 1998. Today, he is the head of IT for the American School in Barcelona, Spain. And so he's come a long way. But this is the MD Anderson YMCA lab, and it has been through several computer upgrades over the years, the most recent, of course, being the BTOP upgrade, and it has always been in this one location, but there are some folks who have benefited from BTOP funding saying thank you. Thank you, Laura.
You're welcome.
But Technology for All was really created to take advantage and create opportunities that many of us take for granted. You know, I don't know about you, but I've got several digital devices with me. Here at the stand, of course, we've got this device, we've got the screen, I've got my iPhone, got all kinds of things in my bag, and many folks don't have those opportunities. So we created the organization to take advantage of those opportunities. And we believed early on that digital skills equaled living wage opportunities. And so here we've continued with that theme with computers and several BTOP, several public computer centers at BTOP sites across Texas. And one of the things that we have learned is that 80% of the Fortune 500 companies require you to do a computer job application online. In and around our public computer center where our office is, I went to several sites. So up on the far right, you have a Kroger near our facility. And there's the career opportunity. You can go sit down at the computer kiosk, fill out your stuff. Over here is a McDonald's computer kiosk. To the left is one at Lowe's. And all of us know these are available everywhere. We had recently we had a person come into the computer center at our site who was in tears because she had been to Home Depot. She was going to fill out an application online, and in the process, she got to that screen where you have you have to read the letters, you know, and put them in to verify your information. She didn't know what to do with that. And 30 minutes, she kind of stared at that and struggled with that, did not know what to do. So she came to the public computer center at our office and began a computer class, and hopefully she now has a job. But here's a quote from one of the clients. Any business you want to be in uses computers. The more you know about them, the bigger your advantage. So our donors and partners, and I put this up to include some things that are not a part of our BTOP grant, but a part of who we are as an organization, Technology for All. Of course, Austin Freenet is a big partner. But the biggest partner for us right now, of course, is the BTOP program. We also had strong support from Microsoft, and we have a wireless project with Rice University in our neighborhood, which is supported by National Science Foundation funding. You'll hear some later on today, perhaps from folks who have been managing the Esri project. John Dees is here somewhere. John, where are you? If you want to know about GIS and using students to train on GIS and solve community problems, talk to John Dees, who's in the Smithville office. City of San Antonio, Brazos Valley Council of Governments, 92 community partners. Since October 2010, TFA and its Texas Connects Coalition partner, Austin Freenet, have provided over 2.2 million hours of basic computer skills training to over 175,000 Texans. Those are new numbers as of March 31. Thank you, Carol, to put all that together, or counted all those people. And then let me share with you the project goals that we had in the very beginning. We committed to BTOP that we would do 70 public computer center sites, install 1,284 workstations, and have available workstations 1,361. We have about 159,000 training participants and 314,000 training hours. And you see the weekly users and the site match value. We have blown through most of those goals. We've got 92 sites, 1,400 installed workstations, almost 1,700 available. As we said earlier, 175,000 training participants. And while we do not report this because we have exceeded our site match value, the value of additional dollars invested in the project is $5.6 million. With BTOP, they don't want you to, as you know, once you get to your limit on site match value, quit reporting it. But we want to put that number up there because we think that's a significant number. So, over 1.2 million persons have used our centers. This is actually a young man at the MD Anderson Center, so we're excited about what's happening at each of these centers. Here are the centers, Austin, Houston, San Antonio, and rural Texas. And they comprise 17 Texas counties. Of course, you know, that's a small part of Texas on the one hand, but it's a huge expanse of service. When you layer that on top of other states across the universe, I think Carol Flores compared it to laying Nebraska on top of Texas or something like that. I don't know if that's exactly right, but it's a big swath of country. So here's one of the centers, Esperanza in Houston. One of the things that took place, and I'm really thankful to Libby Scheibel, who manages our Smithville office, for helping with this. You may remember the wildfires about a year and a half ago. One of the things that happened is that the Smithville Public Computer Center became a base of operations for disaster response. So we're very grateful that we were in that location and were able to provide that response at that place. And I should put this picture up here. Sometime right before the fire, there was a digital photography class that began in Smithville, and at the Smithville Recreation Center. The digital photography class was interrupted by the wildfires, but it resumed several weeks later. And one of the things that the folks did in the digital photography class is take pictures of things that were meaningful to them. And so I share this picture with you. This is the caption or the title that the photographer in the class gave this picture was "Surviving Beauty." And this particular flower was taken in the midst of the burned out forest. There around between Smithville and Bastrop. So here are digital literacy skills being put to good use. Here's another center. Again, thank you. Over 54% of the 54% of the adults with a disability use the internet, compared to 81% of those folks without disability. So one of the things that we wanted to make sure took place in our centers is to make sure that centers were accessible and had at least one accessible location, one accessible computer station, and so there is one. This is in Smithville, right, Libby?
Yes.
And another thank you. Lots of thank yous. One of our, another quote from one of our clients, recovering alcoholic and incarcerated for drug use and drug sales, now working full-time on a job that uses computers. Again, another thank you. I'll close with a just sharing with you that one of the things this has created for us is an opportunity to be recognized in this project for collaboration by the Computer World Honors Program, and we're grateful for BTOP and all of our partners for making that possible. So I guess we'll do questions and comments at the end. So,
you know what, you did a lot of my slides, so I'm going to do with technology and kind of go the old-fashioned way.
okay.
So again, I'm Juanita with Austin Freenet, and we together, our organizations, create the Texas Connect Coalition. And before I start, I'd be remiss if I didn't point out some people, and please don't get embarrassed, for the hard work, because it takes a village, and it takes people coming in at different times in the organizational lifespan to make it happen. We had one of our very first opportunities in 1995 with Sue Beckwith and a couple of geniuses. He said, hey, this thing called the internet is about to take off. And we're like, internet? Who needs the internet? That's for geeky people who want to do computer knowledge. But she was brilliant, and one of the ladies is here today, Ms. Dell Thompson. Would you recognize Dell with all the work she did? That Austin Freenet lifespan didn't end with the beginnings. She was very, very instrumental with the BTOP grant, and I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much, Dale Thompson. Rondella Hawkins is in the audience. You'll have a great opportunity to meet her. She has been a champion of this work for years. Rondella, would you just wait? So many people. Laura Morrison, great advocate for this work, and then Sharon, Strover, and Dr. Kempman, who know how important this work is. I just want to thank them so much. And I'm going to talk about the operation side of it. So in order for me to talk about the operation side of it, I can't do that without my team. I have the absolutely best, fantastic, fabulous team members. And if you're a part of my team, would you please just wave your hand and just everybody point to them and say, you did it? Where's my team? Come on. Freenet was created in 1999, and what we did, we put the first internet connections in Austin Public Libraries because we knew they were anchor institutions, and that's where a lot of people went to get internet access. Then we thought, we accomplished our mission, aren't we great? Only to realize that that was just the beginning of the process. And so, again, with the four founders who were so wise in their wisdom, decided to make sure everyone has that access to digital literacy. We've created over time and with lessons learned training modules for our particular demographics, and I'll talk about that a little later. But basically the clients we serve, about 70% of them are now coming into our labs for the purpose of getting jobs. We weren't clear about why they were there. Were they there to use the internet? Were they there just to use YouTube? No, they're here for work and to provide and access other social service benefits. So who do we serve? We serve anyone, but particularly the disadvantaged, the seniors, the adult population that doesn't speak English. We speak the homeless population, disabled, and an ex-offender. We have a large ex-offender population because when they come out of prison, after being in prison or away from technology for not only 5 years, some have 10 and 20, can you imagine when they left, they were doing this with the phone. And they came out, and this magical thing called technology now has them trying to figure out how to log in. It is fascinating. It's fascinating. And I can talk about it all day, but Will told me I only have 2 minutes. So we've done lots and lots of work. What we also learned is that linear classrooms really don't work. So we set our organization up to have classrooms from 5 to 9 or from 9 to 3 for one topic. Come learn about a mouse. Well, when I'm hungry and I need food, or I'm looking for the next place I'm going to sleep, or I don't have electricity, learning to dial math is really kind of low on priority. So what we did was listen to our clients. We said, what do you want to learn? And they said, I want a job. Well, they had a low literacy rate, a low digital literacy rate, and so what we did was create project-based learning. One of my staff members came up with this concept, and it's just brilliant that they could figure these things out. And what project-based learning is all about is when you walk into my lab, and you may say, I just want an email. So we'll give you a card, we'll sit you there, and you happen to come to the lab, because we can't control who comes to the lab. There are different levels of education, different levels of technology expertise, different levels of learning, and so you want to come in for a job. And you would like to come in for your smart social media. He's really up on it. He wants to do social media, and she wants to do a blog. Thank you. So how am I, as one teacher, supposed to be able to deal with all of these different levels? Well, here's where the brilliance come in. We have cheat sheets, and so on your little card, it'll tell you what you need to do. And as you walk in the lab, we give you this kind of oral pre-survey to quickly assess where you are and how much attention and time you're going to need. She doesn't need a whole lot of time. All she needs is access. So what I'll do is say, would you look at this card while I play with her shoes on her block, success number 1. She already got what she came in for. Within 5 minutes, I can assess what your needs are and therefore meet your goals. So this has been a phenomenal opportunity for us to learn about the clients we serve who have some very critical immediate needs that we're really trying to engage them and really trying to ensure that they come out with a product. One of the other things that we've learned, best practices, is that clients may not know what they need. When you walk in and you have a low literacy rate and you want a job as an astronaut, we need to share and teach them why applying for a job as an astronaut doesn't work. And I know that may seem really trite and typical to you, but when you're day in and day out looking for opportunities and you can't find them, you start just throwing lots of things out there. So with our partnerships with Health and Human Services organizations, with senior sites, with homeless organizations, we have learned to deal with the population and to meet the population's needs. I can go on and on, but I'm not. I just want to give you a taste of what we've done. If you're still not clear or want more information, come to our sites and come visit us and come see the work that we did. And again, thank you all for being here. We're super excited about this opportunity.
I want to, before we do questions, let me recognize the TFA staff members in the room. I also want to recognize Jim Forrest, who is here. Jim was a TFA staff member, was really instrumental in helping us procure computers. One of the things that we did, which was really a great thing, and Jim was the leader in this, and that is to procure computers at less than the price that we budgeted, which is what allowed us to extend our capacity and all that. So let me ask the TFA staff members who are here to wave and stand up or something. So answer questions about things that are going on in the TFA universe. So I guess it's time for questions. So go for it. Sharon, are you moderating this part?
I am.
Okay.
I was just going to grab a mic, but I think people really want to hear from you. So I'm happy to recognize any questions from here, and I have a few. Yes.
I work for a library, and I'd be interested in the cheat sheets that you use so that I can use that information for my patrons.
Well, thanks to Laura Breeden, it's free, and we'll be glad to help you with that.
Laura Breeden, by the way, is BTOP leader of Public Computer Centers and Sustainable Broadband Adoption, and we are grateful for Laura's presence here.
Yes, we are.
You'll be hearing some from her later in the day. So,
And I'm grateful not to be in Washington. And by the way, I did not make all these decisions alone because that's not how the federal government works. And you should thank your congresspeople for funding the BTOP program as part of the Recovery Act to the tune of $4.7 billion.
There's another hand. Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about how the progression and what you've seen and how many people show up and what they want to know and that sort of thing?
Yes, we started off with posted linear classes, as I indicated. We talked about, come learn how to use a mouse. Come understand what a screen is and what part of the computer does what. Come and, Dory, help me. Come and
Learn about hardware and software.
hardware and software. And so we got a whole bunch of people to sign up for that one. And so what we started to do, because a part of the requirement is to post the class and make sure it's public and people understand it, we started talking to the people who already were in the lab and asking them what they needed. And then what they told us was, really, I'm here to get an email because I need a job. And so we started posting things like, need an email for a job? Come play with us. And so we started seeing things happening, and we created even what we call a new jobs lab at the DeWitty Center. Come visit us, and you'll see magic happen in that room. We have one person in that room who just sprinkles magic dust around because she is so in tune with the needs of those clients that she can immediately look across the room and see what they need.
Yes, John.
Yeah, I was wondering if you know whether all the activities at the public computing centers led to broadband adoption at home among clients. Once they got exposed to the resources, gained some skills, do you have any information or data on whether that resulted in an uptick of subscriptions at home among the clients you serve?
We don't have data on that. We have, narrative. We can tell stories about that, but we don't have data on that. If we had a sustainable broadband adoption grant, we would be collecting that data like crazy, but we don't have specific data on that. But we have lots of stories.
We're taking notes on future research.
A lot of stories become data.
Yeah.
I have a question for Will. Will, with over 1,200 personal computers, what's your maintenance model? What's your technology or troubleshooting organization like that?
Well, actually, there are two people in the room that set that up. John Neal, who is right there, and right in front of him, Jim Forrest, who was, they put that together in the beginning. And one of the things that they did, which was really smart, which was to come up with a standard image that would be deployed to all of our public computer centers, that also, when folks logged off, went back to the standard image if any changes had been made. So John is really the mastermind of that, if you have questions about that, John can certainly answer them a lot better than I can.
Could I address that, if you don't mind, for Austin Freenet, because we have John, and we've created we only hire people who name John, so there's another John in technology. And what we are doing is we have a opportunity to go out and do regular maintenance. And as we expanded our sites, we knew we couldn't do this as one person. So we created a partnership with ITT Technical Institute. And so these guys are very theoretical, but they have no practical application experience. And so our Johns, in their brilliance, created this partnership where they come over and work with us and get practical application as we deploy them to our sites to upgrade and maintain our network.
Yeah, Laura.
A lot of the BTOP projects tell us that word of mouth is a really important way for the information to spread about the classes, or about whatever services are available as part of the project. Could you say a little bit about word of mouth, social networks, and how you think that plays into what's going on in your program?
I'll say a little bit about that. At our the location, the Public Computer Center at our office, one of the things that we're doing is we've had a lot of computer donations that we're refurbing and getting back out in the neighborhood. And we've just started a program in collaboration with Connected Texas, where we are also selling computers. And so we have not done any advertising, but we've just begun to see that ramp up, and it's really begun to ramp up, I think, primarily because of word of mouth. Did you know that if you go down to the locate down the street, you can get a computer. You can take it home. And in our case, in our neighborhood, through our collaboration with Rice University, folks in that neighborhood can also connect to a wireless network, which is a research network with Rice. So, I mean, it's amazing what I've seen in just in the past several weeks as we begin to ramp that program up. But I think that's typical across the connection.
And for us, it's exactly that made our program successful. People start saying, you can go to AFN to get a job, or you can go to AFN to do Facebook, or you can go to AFN to do such and such. And so, as a result of that very word of mouth, we started a bilingual class on 2 days a week. And they're learning not only English as a second language, they're learning the technical aspects of the computer and how to navigate browsers and that kinds of thing. So you start with 2 people, and then all of them are somehow related in the room, but then it spreads out from there. So word of mouth is the most powerful marketing tool we still have on the planet.
Yeah, Lon and then.
Have you developed any strategies to ensure that this is going to be sustained after the grant money runs out, whether working with government or institutions?
We are working diligently on that. Juanita and I have been meeting with various folks, and our strategy is multi-pronged. We are waiting for some of those big strategic opportunities to come to fruition. So we've done lots of asking, and we will continue to do that.
And if you know somebody.
Yes, well.
What is the level of broadband service that you give at your community centers, and how does that compare to the stated theoretical broadband? And with that in mind, what would you recommend be a baseline service that is subsidized in the future for low-income communities?
Oh.
There's a John in the room who can answer that question. Because all of our sites are somehow independent organizations that we partner with in the community. John or Don, would you care to help us out on that?
It's a range. It's a range. I mean, we've got 100 megabit fiber in places, and we've got, cable modems in other places that go up to 10 or 15.
But you're always above the 764K.
Oh, yeah.
So what is the, in your opinion, just for watching all the people who use applications, what's the baseline minimum that we should establish as broadband?
Don?
So the baseline ought to be at 100 megabit. You're able to accomplish, those things you need to do, like job applications, reconnect with family, that sort of thing. Obviously, anything above that is icing on the cake. But obviously, you don't want anything in the 56K modem range.
Because that's still
That's a dialogue now.
And as far as Wi-Fi goes, standard Wi-Fi or G or N obviously would suffice. If you want to get into things like streaming training material, you may want to be looking at gigabit speed, at least internally. And then, of course, if you have a fiber connection, that makes it all that much better.
Right, but from the service provider vantage point, I mean, AT&T and Time Warner, I mean, their standard packages are still less than a meg for DSL, or maybe 2 meg or something for a cable modem. Is that enough? And if that's not enough, what should it be?
That's what we're running with today. We're running with AT&T, and at least at the Wheatie Center, and most of the other PCC sites in Austin are either with Time Warner or AT&T.
And your uplinks are minimum 100 in those places?
It's John, help me out with that. What's the AT&T speeds?
7.5.
7.5 megs?
Yeah.
And we can run away with about 20 machines if not everybody's trying to stream things.
So if everybody hits the enter button at the same time, you're dead. But
I think that's a really interesting question, and after we hear a little bit more about what some of the researchers observed in the labs, I think that would be a good question to come back to as well. Yes?
We found that our #1 application in our public computer center from January through mid part of April was taxes. People coming in to do their taxes. And when you're running at about 5 megabits, which we had in there, it took hours. And now we're up to 50 megabits and 100 megabits in the two centers. They split. And the people that used to take hours are taking 30 minutes to an hour to do their taxes in their house. So the contention problems that you had internally is also a factor. How many people are in the seats, time of day, what's going on in that.
Could you identify where your centers are?
In Raymondville, Texas.
Okay.
I've been remiss in not asking people to introduce themselves, since we're going to be here presumably for the day, and maybe say, if you want to comment, maybe say who you are and who you work for.
Speaking of centers, one of the things I want to lift up, at least minimally at this point, and we'll talk more about it later this afternoon, the Texas Connects Coalition project, the last week in June, will be having a week of emphasis called Broadband Across Texas Week. And our hope is that it might be something that some of you who also have public computer centers could participate in, and by collectively working together, we can get a lot of public press about what is taking place in our public computer centers across Texas. So we'll talk more about that later, but last week in June.
Yes, did you want to?
Along those lines, with the No Child Left Behind, we looked at it, a No Parent Left Behind, and bringing the folks that are at home up to speed with what's going on in the public education system. So getting that program off the ground has really been monumental, because you have to collaborate with your local school districts and your local computer centers. So that's another factor.
I know Austin's doing that. We're doing that in Houston. Yes.
In addition to speed as an essential resource at these centers, volunteers are another essential resource. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about the successful strategies you've devised to mobilize volunteers. And you've been doing this for a long time. You have a lot of experience. What works and what does not?
For us in Freenet, we saw the value of volunteers, and that concept really was heavily enforced early on when we didn't have the funds for staff. And so we continued that process. So we designated a person, first of all. If you want great volunteer management, you have to invest in that person to do that work. And so having a targeted person do that work then can deploy and hit corporations, individuals, technology companies who have staff that really want to give back, but they don't know how to do that. And so I think that's one of the key lessons learned. And so our volunteer rates have, of course, increased. The level of expertise and help is great. And in our model that we use, where we're helping multiple people, you can imagine that 2 people would do more better than 1. And so that's been a really great usage of volunteers for Austin Freenet.
Will, did you want to?
I just say we've found volunteers a difficult thing to manage at times. I mean, volunteers are very, very helpful, but we have continual turnover, so we haven't learned how to do it quite as well as Austin Freenet.
Yes. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, John Dees with Technology Pro. I'm the training manager for rural Texas and San Antonio. And to add on to the volunteer, because we're dealing with a lot of people that are looking for jobs, we encourage them to go and find opportunities to volunteer in the community and to assist with our programs, because then that's a skill and asset that they can put on their resumes. And we find that by encouraging volunteers to help with the classes as well, that they learn the materials that they're training other people on. So it helps on the resume side and it helps on the skill side.
The best way to learn as an adult is to choose something on the edge of your expertise.
Juanita, you mentioned in talking about the history of Austin Freenet that Austin Freenet's first site really was in the public libraries, and which I think everybody could identify as an anchor institution in just about any community, especially in the rural communities. I was wondering if you could comment, both of you could comment on anchor institutions and their roles, and if they're changing in the 21st century. Are there new sorts of anchor institutions? Are there new places we need to start looking for both partnering as well as for delivering services?
Well, let me say, you're right. In the rural areas, the libraries are critical anchor institutions. The libraries in rural Texas that Libby Scheibel on our team helps coordinate, many of those are the public places for people to gather in communities. So libraries are definitely a big part of that. Some other locations are faith-based organizations, community organizations. They may not be institutions in terms of schools or community colleges, but they, in many cases, particularly with our immigrant population, some of those places are actually more welcoming than big institutions, because the big institutions are scary. So we find a lot of our immigrant population going to community organizations that are less imposing, if you will, than a public institution, as a governmental institution.
And that's why PCCs work so well, public computer sites. We take our expertise and take it to other people's homes. For example, neighborhood center that serves the community in a plethora of areas, such as providing Texas social service benefits like WIC and TANF, and they may also have a child care lab there and helping with utilities. So we put ourselves right in the midst of the organization, holistic kind of community, which I love to call that village, where a person can go to one place and meet his or her own needs in that time frame. Other institutions that we can think about might be senior citizen sites, where younger generations are visiting their elderly parent, and if we have a computer center there, they can begin teaching the elderly how to get on Facebook and send those pictures that the kids no longer are printing out to send to grandma, because they're getting angry. The older people say, I'm angry, the kids don't send me pictures anymore. Well, if we create anchor institutions within those sites, that creates a lot of synergy, a lot of activities for the elderly and the young to get together, and it just creates that whole historical concept of where you see generational relationships continue to thrive.
Yeah.
So one of the tough questions, it seems to me, for public computer centers is that generally access to those public computer centers is restricted to the hours in which they're open. So if you're thinking about adults, for example, who are working and their potential access, if they're coming from a disadvantaged or low-income or disconnected environment, they may not be able to be there doing 9 to 5. Have you thought at all about how, the issue of extending access to low-income adults who may be working poor, who may be disadvantaged, how are you going to use your model to expand access to those whose hours may not coincide with those of the public computing center?
So, great question, really important. That is why the placing public computer centers inside of another facility that controls the access is really important, because what access to that community means is what they have found to be important to that community. So we're not going to dictate 8 to 5 to anyone. We did at Austin Free that had extended hours, but unfortunately those hours we really didn't see many people at all. And it was a huge drain on resources. And so again, what we decided to do is collaborate with partners who have different hours, and we can refer our clients to those hours after hours.
And one of the things that, from Technology for All's point of view, one of the things that has been a value of our organization from the very beginning, and that is to develop relationships and partnerships with organizations in communities that are already there, that already have community credibility, that already have figured out these are the hours that work best in our community, and those organizations, if we went into a community and said, a geographic community said, we want to put a computer lab here, and we just went there and said, well, let's pick a building, we'll put it in, it would fall flat. But a key component of our our model from the very beginning is to look for those organizations in neighborhoods, in communities that are already there, that have community credibility, that are seeing lots of traffic, and know their constituents and their clients. So that's a key piece of that. It's not about us determining the hours, it's really about developing a relationship with that organization that already knows what their community needs and what are the best hours to serve that community.
Yes.
I just wanted to say something. I'm Fran Hunter with Technology for All, and I am the THC2 Communications and Outreach Team Lead. At the rural sites, though, we have laptops, and if somebody calls us and needs us to teach them after hours, our program specialists in all these schools around the rural area and in San Antonio try to accommodate them, sometimes with one-on-one teaching, because we figure if anybody is willing to teach that much, or willing to learn that much, and to call us, that they really want to learn. And so we try and accommodate people when we can. And a lot of our sites actually have wireless, umbrella wireless, so if people have some kind of device, they can at least go to sit outside and have access.
Yeah, as an example, the office in Smithville has a little bench outside, which is accessible. You can sit there and access
24 hours a day.
Yeah, 24 hours a day, you can access the wireless connection.
You have a really complicated and big project with 90+ sites, and it's clearly involved collaborating with a lot of nonprofit and other kinds of institutions. And you've been doing this for a long time. Could you talk a little bit more about some of the nuances of collaborating with nonprofits? Because these, especially now, with unemployment rates as high as they are, and incomes as low as they are for many of the populations that you're dealing with, a lot of these partners are pretty strapped as well. So you've doubtless learned something. Can you tell us a little bit about how, are there some lessons for other organizations trying to cobble together nonprofit coalitions?
Well, let me start by saying, and quoting a gentleman who went on to be a program officer at the Ford Foundation several years ago, was in our offices, and he was talking about how when we collaborate, a lot of folks think that the pie gets smaller. You have there's a certain amount of resources, and if you work together, it means everybody has to give up something, and the resources you have for your own organization actually become less. And what he pointed out is actually when you collaborate, the pie gets bigger. And so that's actually something that we learned on this project by working together with Austin Freenet as our first collaborator. The pie has gotten bigger, and we've been able to attract resources to the project that we don't think we could have attracted by ourselves. The second thing is that I would say is that in collaboration, one of the things that you have to learn is that every organization has its own personality and ways of doing and being, and sometimes that's not as noticeable as you go into something, and it takes a while to kind of figure that out. You kind of have to figure out how to dance together, so to speak. Some organizations don't dance well with others, and some dance, you can figure it out quite easily and quite quickly. You've got to be aware of those organizational personalities and nuances, and you got to be open to figuring some of that stuff out. Juanita and I dance pretty well together now, but we have to figure each other out. So.
The other thing I would say about collaborations is you need to be strategic in your partnerships. And by that I mean, you want to find someone who complements you and not necessarily replicate yourself. You don't necessarily need a partner who looks exactly like you. You want a partner whose mission and purpose is exactly like yours, but how they implement that is differently. An example of what I mean by that is, I'll take one of the homeless shelters that we're in. Why would we partner with a homeless shelter? Well, because they provide lots of resources in that space. We put a lab inside of their space, and that collaborative effort, we have people hundreds of people coming through that door every day. That's an opportunity to change somebody's life if they can understand this vehicle called technology. And so that marriage is really great. We're going on second and third honeymoons with them because we have such a range of people. And when we think of homeless people, sometimes we think of the person who, just lazy. Well, let me take you on a journey. You lose your job. You don't have any other source of income. You're 6 months down the road, but you got a severance package. You're smart. But then there's no funding. The families, your family is not a part of your life. Friends are tired of you sleeping on their couch. What's the next move? And how long would it take for you without resources to become one of them? There are smart people, people with degrees, people who are highly educated, who had a misfortune, who had a medical issue that knocked them off their socks. Now, I'm not saying that all of these people are that way, but for the most part, and what we've learned from being in that space with those people is that they're just like us. And so collaboration is all about connecting a potential opportunity that you can't imagine existed before. And we can go on and on, I like to talk, so just think about, just open your
And you were
paradigm.
nervous about this.
I'm always nervous about talking. And then I see faces and people are smiling, and I'm like, thank you. So partnerships are things that collaborate. So think about the person you think is most unlike you. That is probably your best strategic partner.
Yes.
I recall from your map, I didn't see really anything west of Travis County. Is there a reason? Is it being met by someone else or another organization, or what data do you have?
Well, the good news is there's several BTOP grantees across in the room who serve other parts of Texas. For the project that we put together, we cover the geography that we cover. I know that El Paso's in the room, Raymondville is in the room, we have the Texas State Library Project, the Teal Project, which is in the room, Denise.
We have a few.
I saw Laredo there. Was that a mistake?
The town is on the map to illustrate how close Duval County is to Nuevo Laredo. We have some sites in Duval County. Some of you may have heard of Duval County. In fact, the LBJ school has some ties to Duval County, right?
I don't know.
13 votes.
Since we're talking about this kind of topography of who to work with, Will, when you were talking about TFA and Texas Connects, you mentioned the matches that you've been able to get. And of course, for a lot of federal grants, a lot of grants from foundations, some kind of a match is required. This means that a lot of nonprofit entities providing services are forced, but have to, find some partners. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about the matches and what form those matches took and how one actually accomplishes satisfactory matches.
As you know, match can be cash and it can be in kind. And in our particular project, we have both. And the match ranges from cash support of our investment in the project by Microsoft in terms of software to the public computer center space that is a match part of the project to direct supervision of the centers by staff. It's a lot of different things. So,
what do you think compels the buy-in from the entities providing the match?
Well, I'd like to speak specifically, and I want to recognize Commissioner Lemuel Williams. Thank you so much for coming. I didn't see you earlier. Austin is incredible, and again, I hate to keep harping on this person called Rondella, but the TERRA commissioners, Telecommunication Regulatory Agencies, part of their mission is to provide public access. So in order for them to provide public access, they need an entity to implement that. So that was a beautiful match between the two. And what they also did was create a very strong nonprofit model by providing a financial consultant to make sure I don't run off with money, because that person doesn't report to me, that person reports to Rondella. So all of that information is highly secure. I don't have to worry about adding one and one together. And a technical expert, John Neal. And so those two are the most expensive administrative costs for any nonprofit, and it's really hard to get high-quality people. And with the brilliance out of the city, creating a model that helps build a solid infrastructure for us, we've been able to last for years, and you can see how powerful that model is.
Did you want to elaborate, Will? Any of that?
I wish we had something like that in Houston.
Everywhere. Interesting. Maybe is there another question?
Ken's making a
Comment?
Question, I just wanted, we're gonna break for coffee in about 4 minutes. And I just wanted to take the opportunity to, again, thank all the folks who made today possible. And that includes, in addition to the sponsors of UT, Technology for All, Don Shirley of Connected Texas, the City of Austin. And we have a minute or two before coffee. I wanted to give Don Shirley a chance to say hello and maybe
Thank you.
okay, you're going to be on the program later, so you'll have an ample opportunity to talk about what you're doing. But just why don't you just take the stand for a second? And I don't know if Ms. Hawkins would also like to come down and talk for a moment. You're going to be on the program later. Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, thanks, Ken. I appreciate that. My name is Don Shirley with Connected Texas. If you all aren't, I know a lot of you are already, because I know a lot of you in the room are familiar with Connected Texas, but if you're not, Connected Texas is the designated entity for what is referred to as the State Broadband Initiative. This is a program that is funded primarily by the NTIA. And our program is primarily focused on measurement of all the activities that have already been discussed. If you go to our website at connectedtx.org, you will find an interactive map that shows all the broadband services that are available across the state of Texas, who the providers of those services are, the services that they provide, the speeds that they provide, the cost of those services. You will see all kinds of information about community anchor institutions and the services that are available to them at their facilities, and that includes all the organizations that we've been talking about, public computing centers and libraries and other community service organizations, and of course all the education facilities and healthcare facilities and other government facilities across the state. And so that mapping of the current status of broadband in particular, and then understanding where the gaps are, is something that we refer to as access, and that's a major part of our effort, is to understand the access situation in the state, figure out where the need is, where the gaps are, and then try to address that need. The second area that we operate in and do quite a lot of research in is what we call adoption, which is the focus of this discussion today, and that is getting people to use the broadband access that they already have. Here in the state of Texas, we're down to just a few percentages of the population that actually do not have any sort of broadband available to them. But we still have a third of the population in the state that have broadband available but are not using it. And so these are folks that could be connected to the internet, could be having the internet experience, and aren't. And as was discussed already, there are various reasons why. Digital literacy and inclusion is a big part of that. So we continue to research that number and to understand who's using the internet, who's not, why they are, why they aren't, and then try to work with organizations such as the Texas Connect Coalition and others that are out there, everybody here in the room, to see how those needs are being addressed. And then we also look at use issues, how the internet is being used. And so access, adoption, and use are the things that we measure. And one of the things that I really appreciate is that you all have come here to join together, and we're very excited because what we've learned is that the way that these problems get solved, the way that the gap gets filled, is by having everybody that's associated with the need gather together, collaborate on how to fill that need, and learn from each other on how best to do that. You know, our hope, of course, is that going forward, that there will also be some opportunity to share with each other, to join each other in their efforts, and then also to see some expansion of funding towards these goals. So thank you all for being here, and you know, looking forward to meeting everybody as we go through the day. Thank you.
Mandela, please come on down for a moment. We're about to break for coffee in another couple minutes. I just wanted to point out that the next item on the agenda is going to be a group of LBJ graduate students talking about essentially a 9-month-long study of public computing centers. We're really excited to have you here to hear about our results. First, Rondell, thank you very much. You've been up to a lot. I'm glad you have the time to talk to us
I really
today.
appreciate the accolades. And actually, Councilmember Morrison wanted me to make a couple of clarifications, and I'll keep it brief. First of all, she wanted to recognize, we have a couple of our community technology commissioners here from Austin, and Flamm was recognized, but Melvin White also is here. And so she wanted to make sure that the commission plays a strong, has a strong role in community technology advocacy. And then the other clarification was, you know, Google Fiber came to Austin, and I want to make sure everyone understands that there were no economic incentives given to Google during for them to come to Austin, and that Councilmember Morrison was real strong in getting additional funding for our Grant for Technology Opportunities program. I just wanted to clarify that, so just to clear the record. So that's all I have. We'll look forward to the session this afternoon. Thank you.